stand anywhere in Egypt today. The Nile still flows. The pyramids at Giza still catch the morning light the same way they did when the pharaohs walked inside them. The Sphinx still steers east, waiting for a sunrise it has watched more than 1.6 million times. Rewind 5,000 years and you'd find something impossible to believe. A civilization so advanced, so organized, so certain of its place in the universe that it built monuments designed to last forever. And they did. 3,000 years, 170 pharaohs, 31 dynasties. More time separates Cleopatra from the building of the Great Pyramid than separates Cleopatra from us. When she walked through the temples of Luxor, the pyramids were already more ancient to her than the Roman Empire is to us. For most of history, the color of those temple walls was lost, the sound of those streets, the faces of those crowds. Faded carvings on temple walls, hieroglyphs no one could read for 1,400 years. Now, using AI reconstruction trained on archaeological evidence and surviving artwork, we can see it as it was. The temples painted in blazing color. The Nile crowded with boats. The streets of Thebes alive with priests, merchants, and soldiers. Welcome to Honest History with Elias. For this video, I studied the original archaeological and textual evidence about ancient Egypt, drawing on the scholarship of Toby Wilkinson's The Rise and Fall of Ancient Egypt, to tell you the real, documented, and extraordinary story of one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever seen. I hope you enjoy it. 3,000 years. One video. Let's go back to where it all began. Before there were pharaohs, there was only the river. The Nile floods every summer. It has done this for tens of thousands of years. When the waters recede in autumn, they leave behind a strip of dark, rich soil, sometimes only a few miles wide, cutting through hundreds of miles of desert on both sides. The Egyptians called this soil Kemet, the Black Land. They called the desert Deshret, the Red Land. Everything about Egyptian civilization comes from this: the calendar, the religion, the architecture, the politics, all of it. One river, flooding on schedule, feeding everyone. By 5000 BC, farming communities line both banks. They grow emmer wheat and barley. They raise cattle and goats. They weave linen from flax so fine it is almost transparent. They make pottery, not crude, rough pots, but thin-walled vessels with rippled surfaces, painted with geometric patterns and animals. They bury their dead in shallow pits, curled on their sides, facing west toward the setting sun. Beside the body, jars of food, tools, jewelry. Already, even here, 5,000 years before Christ, the Egyptians believe death is not an ending. It is a departure, and you need to pack. But they are not one people. Not yet. Over centuries, villages become towns. Towns become chieftaincies. Chieftaincies begin to merge. By around 3500 BC, two distinct kingdoms have formed. Upper Egypt in the south, the narrow Nile Valley, its king wearing a tall white crown called the Hedjit. Lower Egypt in the north, the wide, fertile delta that fans out like an open hand toward the Mediterranean, its king wearing a flat red crown called the Deshret. They trade, they compete, they fight. And somewhere in the archaeological record, the evidence of violence appears. Mace heads, fortress walls, ceremonial palettes carved with images of a king smashing enemies. Then, around 3100 BC, a king from the south changes everything. His name was Narmer, or Menes. The sources blur. What matters is this:
He conquers the north, unites the two lands, and wears both crowns together. The double crown. 1. Egypt.
He builds a new capital at Memphis, right where the valley meets the delta. Strategic. Central. A city that will remain important for 3,000 years. But the real transformation comes 400 years later. The year is roughly 2670 BC. A pharaoh named Djoser rules from Memphis. His architect, a man named Imhotep, builds something no one has ever seen before. A tomb made entirely of stone. Not a flat-topped mastaba like every ruler before him. A stack of 6 mastabas, each one smaller than the one below, rising 200 feet into the sky. The Step Pyramid at Saqqara, the first monumental stone building in human history. Imhotep is an architect, yes, but also a physician, a priest, a scholar. 2,000 years later, the Greeks will worship him as a god of medicine. He is the first genius whose name we know. But the Step Pyramid is only the beginning. Within a century, Pharaoh Khufu orders something far more ambitious. The Great Pyramid of Giza, 481 feet tall. 2.3 million stone blocks, most weighing 2 to 3 tons, some up to 80 tons. It takes roughly 20 years and 20,000 to 25,000 workers, not slaves. Recent archaeology has found the workers' village southeast of the pyramids. Barracks, bakeries, breweries, medical facilities, even proper burials. These were paid laborers, farmers who came during the flood season when the fields were underwater. The state fed them. The state housed them. The state buried them. The Great Pyramid will remain the tallest structure on Earth for 3,800 years. Nobody builds anything like this again. Not in Egypt, not anywhere. For nearly 4 millennia. But power built on one river is fragile. Around 2200 BC, the Nile floods fail. Not once, not twice, for decades. The harvests shrink. The grain stores empty. Famine spreads across the delta and up the valley. The pharaoh in Memphis cannot feed his people. And a pharaoh who cannot feed his people is not a god. He is just a man in a crown. There is a text from this period, a lament. The river is dry. Men cross it on foot. The grain has perished on every side. People are stripped of clothing, spice, and oil. Everyone says there is no more. Provincial governors, the nomarchs, stop obeying the capital. They keep the grain for themselves. They raise their own armies. They collect their own taxes. They rule their own territories. Egypt splits in two again. The north ruled from Heracleopolis. The south ruled from Thebes. Different rulers, different capitals. Civil war between them. Raiders from the eastern deserts push into the delta, and nobody is strong enough to stop them. For 150 years, the greatest civilization on Earth tears itself apart. Tombs are robbed. The dead pharaohs, once protected by magic and stone, are stripped of their gold. Temples fall into disrepair. Irrigation canals silt up. The records go silent. But then a family in Thebes, a city 400 miles south of Memphis, begins to fight back. Around 2040 BC, a Theban prince named Mentuhotep II defeats the northern rulers and reunifies Egypt. He rules for 51 years. Thebes becomes the new power center. A new god rises with it, Amun, the Hidden One. His temple at Karnak, modest at first, will eventually become the largest religious structure on Earth. The Middle Kingdom is not the age of pyramids. It is the age of words.
مصر لدبية تفلرش. A Tale of Sinuha, القصة من a court official who flees Egypt after a pharaoh's death and spends years in exile among the Bedouin before returning home as an old man, is written during this period.
Scholars consider it one of the finest works of ancient literature. The Egyptians themselves copied it for centuries, the way later civilizations will copy Homer. The writing system evolves. Hieratic, a faster, cursive version of hieroglyphs, allows scribes to record everything: legal cases, medical prescriptions, love poems, mathematical problems. A papyrus from this period solves equations that European mathematicians will not master for another 3,000 years. Trade expands. Egyptian ships sail to the land of Punt, somewhere on the coast of East Africa, and bring back gold, incense, ebony, leopard skins, and living myrrh trees, roots wrapped in balls of earth. They dig a canal connecting the Nile to the Red Sea. They build massive mud brick fortresses deep into Nubia to protect gold mines, with walls 30 feet thick and watchtowers overlooking the cataracts. Egypt is stable, prosperous, and for the first time truly literate, a civilization at the height of its powers. But around 1650 BC, something unprecedented happens. Foreigners invade. The Hyksos, a people from Western Asia, sweep into the Nile Delta with a weapon Egypt has never seen: the horse-drawn chariot. 2 wheels, 2 horses, a platform for an archer. Faster, deadlier, impossible to stop with infantry alone. The Hyksos seize northern Egypt. They rule from a city called Avaris in the eastern delta, adopting some Egyptian customs while keeping their own gods and their own language. For the first time in 1,500 years, Egypt is not ruled by Egyptians. The Theban rulers in the south refuse to submit, but they cannot yet win, not without chariots of their own. It takes over a century to drive them out. Around 1550 BC, Ahmose I, another prince from Thebes, expels the Hyksos and reunifies Egypt for the 3rd time. But this time, Egypt does not simply rebuild, it conquers. The pharaohs of the new kingdom learn a lesson from the Hyksos invasion. Defense is not enough. They adopt the chariot. They professionalize the army with standing divisions named after gods, and they march. But before the great conquests, something extraordinary happens. A woman takes the throne. Hatshepsut, daughter of Thutmose I, wife of Thutmose II, stepmother of the young Thutmose III. When her husband dies, the heir is too young to rule. Hatshepsut becomes regent. Then she becomes king. Not queen, king. She wears the ceremonial beard. She is depicted in statues as a man. She rules for over 20 years. And under her reign, Egypt does not wage war. It trades. She launches the most famous expedition to Punt, depicted in extraordinary detail on the walls of her memorial temple at Deir el-Bahri, a building carved directly into the cliffs of the West Bank at Thebes, 3 terraces of colonnades rising from the desert floor like a modernist masterpiece 3,500 years before modernism exists. When she dies, her stepson finally takes power, and he has been waiting a long time. Thutmose III, sometimes called the Napoleon of Egypt, fights 17 campaigns in 20 years. His first battle at Megiddo in modern Israel is the earliest battle in recorded history described in enough detail to reconstruct. He pushes Egypt's borders to the Euphrates River in the east and deep into Nubia in the south. The wealth that pours in is staggering. Gold from Nubia, so much gold that the king of Assyria writes to the pharaoh, "In your country, gold is as plentiful as dust." Cedar from Lebanon, lapis lazuli traded from as far as Afghanistan, copper from Sinai, silver from the Aegean. Thebes becomes the richest city on earth, and they spend it. The temple complex at Karnak, dedicated to Amun, becomes the largest religious building ever constructed. 200 acres. A hypo-style hall with 134 columns, some 70 feet tall, and so thick that 6 men standing in a circle with arms outstretched cannot reach around one. Every pharaoh for 2,000 years adds something to Karnak. Walk through it today in Luxor, and you are walking through 20 centuries of continuous devotion. Across the river, in the Valley of the Kings, the pharaohs carve their tombs deep into limestone cliffs. No more pyramids. Pyramids are too visible. Tombs must be hidden. 63 tombs will eventually be cut into this valley. Underground corridors stretching hundreds of feet, walls painted with scenes of the afterlife. The colors survive in darkness for 3,000 years. When you see them today, they look like they were painted last week. Then, around 1350 BC, a pharaoh tries to destroy it all. His birth name was Amenhotep IV. He inherits the wealthiest kingdom on earth. He inherits a priesthood of Amun so powerful it rivals the throne. In his 5th year, he changes his name to Akhenaten, meaning effective for the Aten. The Aten, the sun disk, one god, not the chief god, the only god. He shuts down the temples of Amun. He defaces the old gods' names wherever he finds them. He moves the capital from Thebes to a brand new city in the desert, Akhenaten, today called Amarna. He builds it from nothing in the middle of nowhere, 200 miles north of Thebes, specifically because the site has no history, no connection to any other god. His queen is Nefertiti. Her painted bust, found 3,300 years later in a sculptor's workshop at Amarna, is one of the most recognized faces in human history. The new art is unlike anything Egypt has produced in 2,000 years. Instead of the rigid, idealized figures of traditional art, Akhenaten commissions images of himself with elongated limbs, a protruding belly, wide hips. He is shown kissing his children, holding hands with Nefertiti. The Aten, depicted as a sun disk with rays ending in tiny human hands, reaches down to bless the royal family. Some call it the first monotheism in human history. Others, the ravings of a fanatic. After 17 years, Akhenaten dies. His city is abandoned almost immediately. His name is chiseled from every monument. His successors call him the enemy. His own people try to erase him from history. They nearly succeed. His son inherits the throne at 9 years old. The boy reverses everything, restores the old gods, moves the capital back to Thebes, changes his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun. He dies at 19, buried in a small tomb in the Valley of the Kings, forgotten for 3,300 years until Howard Carter opens the sealed door in 1922. Within a generation, the 19th dynasty takes power, and it produces the most famous pharaoh in history, Ramesses II, Ramesses the Great. He rules for 67 years. He builds more monuments than any pharaoh before or after. Abu Simbel, 4 colossal statues of himself, each 65 feet tall, carved into a cliff face in Nubia. the Ramesseum, his memorial temple on the west bank at Thebes. Extensions to Karnak and Luxor so massive that his name is carved on more stone than any other human being in history. In 1274 BC, Ramesses leads 20,000 soldiers and 2,000 chariots north to confront the Hittite Empire at the city of Kadesh on the Orontes River in modern Syria. But Ramesses is deceived. Hittite spies, posing as deserters, tell him the enemy is still far away. He pushes ahead of his main army with only one division. It is a trap. The Hittites are waiting behind the city with 3,500 heavy chariots, 3 horses each, packed with spearmen. They smash into the Egyptian vanguard. An entire division scatters. Ramesses himself is nearly surrounded, cut off from his army, with only his personal guard around him. He counterattacks. The lighter, faster Egyptian chariots wheel around the heavier Hittite vehicles. Reinforcements arrive just in time. Ramesses fights his way out. Neither side wins decisively, but 5,000 chariots have clashed on a single field in a single day, the largest chariot battle in ancient history. 15 years later, the two empires sign a peace treaty, the first recorded peace treaty in human history. Both sides keep a copy. A reproduction of the Hittite version sits in the United Nations headquarters in New York today. Ramesses dies in 1213 BC. He is over 90 years old. He has outlived 12 of his sons. He has fathered over 100 children. His mummy, found in 1881, still has red hair. Egypt will never be this powerful again. The 20th dynasty is the last of the New Kingdom. The pharaohs still call themselves the lords of the two lands, but the reality is slipping away. The Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of raiders from across the Mediterranean, Sardinia, Sicily, Anatolia, the Aegean, nobody is sure exactly, attacked Egypt repeatedly around 1180 BC. They have already destroyed the Hittite Empire. They have burned cities across the eastern Mediterranean. Bronze Age civilization is collapsing everywhere. Troy has already fallen. Mycenae will be next. Ramesses III meets them in the Nile Delta, on water and on land. The Battle of the Delta is one of the first recorded naval battles in history.
اليونانية الأرشرز line the river banks and pour arrows into the sea people ships as they enter the channels. Invaders are trapped, their boats capsizing, their warriors drowning. Egypt survives, but it is the last great victory.
The treasury empties. Corruption spreads. Tomb workers at Deir el-Medina, the small walled village of the artisans who build and decorate the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings, go on strike in the 29th year of Ramesses III's reign. They have not been paid in grain for months. They walk off the job, march to the mortuary temples, and sit down. "We have been hungry for 18 days," they write. "We have come here because of hunger and thirst. We have no clothes, no oil, no fish, no vegetables." It is the first recorded labor strike in history. It works. They are paid. But it happens again and again. The New Kingdom ends around 1070 BC. What follows is a slow fracture. Libyan generals take over the delta. Nubian kings conquer from the south and rule all of Egypt for nearly a century, the 25th dynasty. They are not destroyers. They worship Amun. They restore temples. They see themselves as guardians of an old tradition. The Assyrians invade in 671 BC, the greatest military power in the world with iron weapons against Egypt's bronze, and sack Thebes. The city that was once the richest on earth is plundered. Its temples are stripped. Egypt recovers briefly under the 26th dynasty, a final renaissance centered on the old capital of Memphis. But in 525 BC, the Persians arrive. Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, defeats the Egyptian army at the Battle of Pelusium and conquers the entire country. Egypt becomes a province of the Persian Empire. For the next 200 years, Egyptians revolt against Persian rule again and again. In 332 BC, a 24-year-old Macedonian general walks into Egypt without a fight. The Persians flee. The Egyptians, who hate the Persians, welcome him. He visits the Oracle of Amun at Siwa Oasis in the Western Desert. The priests declare him the son of Amun, a god. He founds a city on the Mediterranean coast. He names it after himself, Alexandria. Then he leaves Egypt and never returns. He dies in Babylon 9 years later at 32. His general, Ptolemy, takes Egypt. He steals Alexander's body while it is being transported back to Macedonia and brings it to Alexandria. He places it in a golden sarcophagus and builds a tomb around it. For 300 years, every visitor to Alexandria comes to see the body of Alexander. The pharaoh's lighthouse, built on an island in the harbor, rises over 300 feet, and its fire can be seen 30 miles out to sea. The city is laid out on a grid, Greek style, with broad boulevards, public baths, theaters, and a royal quarter covering nearly a third of the city. The Library of Alexandria, the largest collection of knowledge in the ancient world, perhaps 400,000 scrolls, draws scholars from across the Mediterranean. Euclid writes his elements here. Eratosthenes calculates the circumference of the Earth here and gets it nearly right. For 3 centuries, Alexandria is the intellectual capital of the world. But inland, in Thebes, in Memphis, in the thousands of villages along the Nile, life continues as it has for millennia. The Ptolemies understand this and adopt a dual identity, Greek to the Greeks, Egyptian to the Egyptians. They build new temples in the traditional pharaonic style at Edfu, at Dendera, at Philae. But dynasty after dynasty, the Ptolemies fight among themselves. Brothers murder sisters, mothers poison sons. By the 1st century BC, the family is a wreck and Rome is circling. Then comes the last of them, Cleopatra VII. She speaks 9 languages. She is the first Ptolemaic ruler in 300 years to learn Egyptian. She is not a passive queen. She is a strategist, a diplomat, a gambler when the odds require it. She allies herself with Julius Caesar. After Caesar's assassination, she allies with Mark Antony. Together, they control the eastern Mediterranean. But Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, comes for them. At the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, the combined fleet of Antony and Cleopatra is destroyed. Antony kills himself. Cleopatra, according to tradition, allows a cobra to bite her. She dies on August 12th, 30 BC. She is 39 years old. Egypt becomes a province of Rome, the richest province, the breadbasket of the empire. The grain that feeds Rome's 1 million people comes from the Nile. 3,000 years of civilization ended in an afternoon. But Egypt did not disappear. It transformed. The temples stayed open for centuries under Roman rule. The last known hieroglyphic inscription was carved at the Temple of Philae in 394 AD, 400 years after Cleopatra. The old religion held on that long. Then the temples closed. The priests left. And within a generation, no one alive could read hieroglyphs. For 1,400 years, the writing was lost. The pyramids stood, but nobody knew who built them or why. The temples survived, but no one could read their walls. An entire civilization went silent. Then in 1799, a French soldier digging fortifications near the town of Rosetta finds a stone with 3 scripts on it: Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs. The same text in 3 languages. In 1822, a young Frenchman named Jean-François Champollion cracks the code. The walls begin to speak again.
Egypt built more than monuments. It built a way of understanding time. The calendar we use, 365 days divided into 12 months, comes from Egypt. The 24-hour day comes from Egypt. The concept of an afterlife, of divine judgment, of the weighing of the soul against the feather of truth, these ideas pass from Egypt into Judaism, into Christianity, into Islam. The pyramids were not built by aliens. They were built by farmers during the flood season, organized by one of the most sophisticated bureaucracies the ancient world ever produced. The proof is in the workers' village at Giza, the bread molds, the brewery vats, the healed bones of men who broke their arms and were treated by doctors. 3,000 years, one river, one strip of fertile soil cutting through an ocean of sand. Stand at the foot of the Great Pyramid today and look up. The same stone Khufu's builders placed 4,500 years ago is still exactly where they put it. Not one block has fallen. Not one. That is Egypt. If this was worth your time, a like and subscribe helps more than you'd think. I'm covering the greatest civilizations and cities in history, one at a time. Tell me in the comments, what should we explore next? Constantinople? Athens? Carthage? And if you haven't seen it yet, check out my video on the entire history of Rome. The story of how Egypt ends is where Rome's story begins. As always, we'll see you in the past.